What's up, guys? This is Trev the Grid here again from Way of the Swan with another awesome Warmachine and Hordes battle report coming right at you. I'm sorry if the audio is a little screwy on this one. I have a bit of a cold, so my nose is a little stuffy, and I hope it doesn't come over too much in the audio, but if it does, I apologize. This time we have the noble armies of Cygnar versus the fiendish warriors of the Skorne Empire. We have Major Victoria Haley versus Tyrant Xerxis. Now, this is a pretty common matchup that you'll see in a lot of tournaments. Haley tends to be a pretty good Skorne drop because Skorne fall down a lot against really hard control, which is exactly what Haley brings. Whereas Cygnar, in general, has a bit of a problem dealing with the high armor and really rough hitting power that Xerxis can put on the table. So we'll see how this matchup goes. It is one that I like to practice because it is a bit of a rough matchup. But the Haley list I'm bringing today is a little non-standard, and I'm building it specifically to beat armor, just about any armor that I can come across. I really want to just punch armor in the face and make it die. Haley's feat, giving me essentially an extra turn, can really help me get the attacks I need to take out a lot of armored bodies, just like Xerxis brings in his list. Now, today we have the Xerxis list that's being played is a theme force. It's tier 2, I believe, of Fist of Halak. Now, Xerxis is a lot of times brought in tier. Sometimes you see him out of tier with a bunch of war beasts or Gatorman posse, which are really good with fury on them. But today we have a ton of cataphracts, which is what Xerxis theme force usually brings. He can also bring Venators and weapon crews in order to get to a higher than tier 2, but normally people stick it around tier 2 and take a couple war beasts and a ton of cataphracts. This particular build features 1 unit of Satrati, 4 units of Incendiarii, 2 units of Arcuarii, as well as Tiberion in the battle group just fueling Xerxis, and a Tyrant Commander and Standard Bearer. Now what this list does is it can clear a lot of infantry. Just about every model in the list has a ranged attack, except for Xerxis, the Satrati, and the Tiberion. It is very battle group light, so if you can take Tiberion out, Xerxis is going to be cutting himself for most of the game. But he doesn't really spend a lot of fury, and he's very safe behind a shield-walled Satrati unit with Defender's Ward, just behind layers and layers of cataphracts. So he's not actually that worried. And Tiberion's a really great choice for this list because A, he hits really hard with fury if he can ever get there, and he's very tanky with Defender's Ward. And he can also help Xerxis or the Satrati from getting Defender's Ward shot off them by Iris or something, because he does have Shield Guard, which always gets me. I keep forgetting that guy has Shield Guard, even though he's a giant shield. The 4 units of Incendiarii are something that you don't normally see. A lot of times it's 3 and 3 units of Incendiarii and Arcuarii, but the extra unit of Incendiarii in this list makes it a pretty good Cygnar drop, because the Incendiarii are really good at taking out like Gun Mages and Stormblades, which are normal Cygnar anti-Skorne units. So the Haley list I'm bringing today, as I said before, is a bit non-standard. It's I'm trying to build a list, 2 lists that, you know, basically getting back to the roots that a lot of people used to build their list pairing. I'm trying to build a list that really beats armor, just about any armor that can be put on the table, anything from Runes of War to something like this Fist of Halak list, and then another list, probably Striker 2, that can defeat infantry, mainly Cricks, just Horde infantry, something like that. I'm considering Striker 2, but also Kane 1 is an option as well. Striker can bring Rebuke to the table, but Kane just, you know, has Snipe and Deadeye on his feet, and he can just do a lot of infantry clearing himself. The issue I'm finding, I wrote an article about this on my blog. You can check it out at wayoftheswan.com if you're interested. But the way the meta is sort of turning out in 2015 is that a lot of people are bringing 2 different sorts of armor SKUs. There's like actual heavy armor SKUs like Bradagus Thorl or Runes of War, where people push armor up to, you know, 22, 23 levels and have a lot of boxes on a very small number of models. And that's something that Epic Haley is really good at beating, because she can control a small number of models very easily and focus a lot of power into one particular place with her bond to give a Warjack 4 focus and temporal acceleration, and just maneuvering solos like Gormandy Wolf and Iris into position to disrupt your opponent. Whereas on the other hand, if you have a list like this Fist of Halak list, it has a lot of armor, and it has generally a lot of boxes. Not a lot of armor on individual models, but there are a lot of models with a lot of relatively high armor and a lot of boxes. And those two armor skewy lists sort of offer two different threats that you have to deal with. And in the past, I was bringing Striker 2 to deal with the heavy infantry skew, and then Haley2 to deal with, you know, armor stacking itself. And I wasn't really covering Horde infantry like Cricks, which is, and I had a lot of problems with Cricks. But I'm trying to build Haley2 to beat basically all armor, and this is one of the first versions of the list. I've changed it a little bit since this game, but we'll see how this one goes. So the list is Haley with a bonded Stormclad in her battle group. I love the Stormclad. It's very fast. It can put a lot of pressure onto an individual model or one area of the board, and then you can use your feet to protect it, and it can usually kill two heavies or a Colossal or something like that all by itself. She has a Squire, there's a Journeyman Warcaster, there's Rupert Carvola the Piper of Ord, Ragman, and Gorman, all these solos, which are pretty necessary to control enemy heavies and buff your damage output in order to do a lot of damage. There's also a unit of Stormblade Infantry with their unit attachment and 3 weapon attachments, if I remember correctly, and they are Jack Marshalling another Stormclad, so that's going to be a second Stormclad that is independent of Haley. She can still buff it with Temporal Acceleration if she wants to, or Telekinesis to get it into range, but it still gets basically 3 focus every turn because Arlen Strangeways is also in that list, so he can power boost it. You get the Jack Marshall pseudo focus, and then it accumulates another focus from the Stormblades, and it does that every turn without using any of Haley's focus, so she can keep the rest of that focus to throw Time Bombs out, or cast Telekinesis, or Deadeye, or something like that. There's also the Black 13th, and a max unit of Forge Guard. So, as you can see, this list is very light on the anti-infantry models. There's no Pistoliers in this list, which I usually take, and there's no Stormcallers, stuff like that. But Stormblades can, you know, they have the AoEs on their guns, they have Assault, they can generate multiple attacks per turn, they can sort of be used to clear infantry. The Black 13th are in there to clear up jamming models, and Stormclads themselves have Electroleap on all of their weapons, so they can actually clear a lot of infantry if they really need to. But as I said before, the idea behind this list is that it's going to try to kill things with lots of armor, and that's what I'm going for, and so far it's doing alright. Not brilliant, but it's doing okay. The scenario today is Recon. It's a new scenario in 2015. It's a little bit of an interesting one. There's a 12 by 6 inch zone oriented vertically in the middle. Each player has an objective in the zone. My objective for this list is Fuel Cache, which allows the Stormclads to charge for free, and it also sets models on fire that attack it at melee and don't kill it. My opponent's objective is Bunker, which gives Girded and Impervious Flesh to models, or it gives Girded, it has Impervious Flesh, so it makes models immune to blast damage while they're race to base with it, and it reduces the damage on it by 1 from ranged attacks. So it is very difficult to kill, but it doesn't have an enormous buffing effect. Normally when you get base to base with objectives, things can shoot at you like lightning or fire AoEs, and so Girded tends to be a bit of a trap, but Impervious Flash is very good, and I think you'll see this objective quite a bit. So those are in the middle of the board. There's also 2 flags on the edge, located in the 12 inches out from the edge, so they're in the middle between the center of the board and the edge of the board. You can score by controlling the zone for 1 control point, dominating the zone for 2, or destroying your opponent's objective for 1, or dominating one of the outside flags for 1. 5 points to win as always, and I don't think there's a kill box in this one. No, there's not. So let's get on into this game and see how it goes. So my opponent won the roll to go first, and he chose to take the first turn in order to take it away from Haley, who usually is very powerful taking the first turn. That gave me the choice of table edge, and I chose to side with the wall. In hindsight, I don't think that was the correct decision, because the wall didn't really come into play this game except to force my models to have Pathfinder in order to get over them, charge over it, which meant that Rupert wasn't going to play another song, which is unfortunate. But you can see my opponent's deployment there. The Fist of Halak list, this particular one anyway, does not have a lot of nuance to the deployment. It deploys very centrally and pretty symmetrically. The Tiberian, Xerxis, and the Citrati are in the center. 2 units of Incendiarii, 1 unit of Arcuari on each side of that. So, as you can see, very centralized deployment, and the same goes for me. I elected to deploy both of my Stormclads in the center across from the Citrati, because I'm going to try to put the Stormclads in there and try to do as much damage as possible. The Marshaled Stormclad is closer to the camera, as you can see next to the Stormblade Infantry. My Bonded Stormclad is on some sandbags, so it's a little bit taller, and it is farther away, just in front of Haley. The Black 13th are over there on the far edge of the table, just outside of that forest. They're going to try to hide in the forest and get stealth, which isn't going to save them a lot from the Incendiarii AoEs, but hopefully it'll help a little bit. So here is the Xerxis force just running up the table. Xerxis chose to go first, put Defender's Ward into the Citrati, Fury onto Tiberion to make him powered strength 21 all of the time, and that -1 defense from Fury isn't really going to affect him too much. He's only defense 11 base, I think, so that brings him to 10. But Defender's Ward on the Citrati, when the shield wall, is going to bring them up to defense 14, armor 22, which is huge, and is going to be really tough for me to take out without some blind or death field action from Ragman and Gorman. Speaking of which, my Bonded Stormclad, got 1 focus from Haley, because it was too far away from the Stormblades to accumulate, and Haley doesn't really care about allocating focus on turn 1, she doesn't have a lot of upkeeps to put out. But both of my Stormclads running up, the Martial Stormclad into Gorman Cloud right there, Arcane Shield being cast onto the Forge Guard, which is what I like to do in this matchup, because the Forge Guard, with their defensive line and their low defense, are very easy to hit with Incendiarii guns, but our Arcane Shield is going to make them very difficult to kill with fire. Unfortunately, that requires Arcane Shield to be there instead of on the Stormblades or a Stormclad, which means that those units are going to be taking a lot of damage from melee attacks and fire rolls. Evasive action being put onto the Marshaled Stormclad as well, and Haley cast Deceleration this turn to help me a little bit against a blast damage and direct fire shooting. So here go the Incendiarii. They are going to deviate a ton of AoEs. Unfortunately, the first deviation of the game shoots a Forge Guard. He's in the forest, so he was defense 14 with Deceleration and Concealment. Deviates over and hits Ryan. So obviously the first deviation of the game, not particularly good for me. I really like Ryan. She has 2 guns that can shoot brutal damage, and she can probably put 1 to 2 cataphracts down every turn, so it is important that she survives, and it looks like she's probably not going to. As I said before, the Forge Guard proving not difficult to hit with the cataphract guns, and most of the unit is being set on fire. I think that's 7 fire tokens right there, which is pretty stock standard, but that's why Arcane Shield's on them. They are not really going to care about fire very much this game. Here's the second unit going. Going to deviate some AoEs into the Stormblades. Without Arcane Shield, the Stormblades are a little bit easier to kill. They're only armor 17 against the shooting. 1 blast damage roll, actually, or 1 direct hit, taking 1 Stormblade out, another one's being set on fire. And there is 1 shot going into the Stormclad, evasive action, because he is defense 16 and the attacker missed. Evasive action allowing him to move 2 inches. He's staying in that cloud there, but that 2 inches is going to get him a little bit of extra distance into the Citrati, which are probably going to walk up into that zone. So next up, we have Xerxis moving up. He doesn't have a lot to do with his Fury in this game, normally at all, usually. He sometimes cycles Fury around, but in this particular game, he's just giving out press forward to the Citrati, and then moving up and upkeeping both of his spells. That's one of the reasons that Tiberion, being the only War Beast in the army, is not particularly bad for this list. Normally, having only 1 War Beast means that if that War Beast dies, you're pretty much hosed, but considering Xerxis doesn't do a lot with his Fury, he'll only have to cut for probably 2 every turn if he is really worried about it. And a lot of times he doesn't need to upkeep both of those spells, so he can run pretty Fury-free most of the time. As you can see, the Citrati moved up into the zone and shield walled. As I said before, they are defense 14, armor 22, massive numbers. So they're going to be sitting in that zone for quite a while, I think. My plan here is, fire rolls happen first, and then Ryan ends up dying, but none of the Forge Guard do, fortunately, and I lose one Stormblade to fire as well. But the plan here is to put both Stormclads into the Satrati, and I'm going to feat so that Xerxis isn't going to be able to counterattack onto the Stormclads. Hopefully I'll be able to take those Satrati out, or at least most of them, but we'll see how that goes. Haley ends up activating, casting Telekinesis on Ragman to get him further up the field, and Deadeye on the Stormblades and Gorman, as well as allocating 3 focus into the Stormclad. She did kick the Squire this turn, so she did have 9 to spend. That is going to allow, and then she's moving up, checking control, making sure I can catch everybody. I don't want Xerxis to randomly feat and kill one of my Stormclads. That seems bad. But Deadeye on Gorman allows him to move up and hit that first cluster of Satrati with a blind bomb. It's going to make them defense 10, so the Stormclad can hit them pretty easily. And then, because he's immune to fire, so he's not going to take damage from the incendiary guns, he's going to be pretty safe right there with the feat. So hopefully I can get another blind bomb off next turn and basically do the same thing. But here are the Stormblades running, one of them running up next to my bonded Stormclad. A lot of assaults going off with Deadeye, so I can hit. I think we end up killing 2 Incendiarii here. Unfortunately, not as many as I was hoping. Those Power 14 guns are good, but it still takes 2-ish shots to kill a Cataphract on average dice, so I don't do a ton of damage. Ragman moving up after his Telekinesis, so he's going to put out his Death Field and hopefully catch both of those Stormclads. The bonded Stormclad advancing up, I think that might have been a mistake. I forgot about the free charge given by the fuel cache. Or Gorman might have been in his way, I don't remember. But he ends up advancing and taking both of those the Satrati in front of him out. I think if I charged, I would have been able to take all 3 out in that little cluster there, but I didn't think about it. So that was a mistake on my part. The Marshaled Stormclad getting a focus from Arlen Strangeways and then charging. I think I made another mistake and forgot to take into account the free charge from the fuel cache objective. Silly me. And rolling very badly, not doing any damage. He ends up boosting the charge attack, missing, and then buying another attack, missing that one as well. So pretty dumb of me. And that Stormclad to forget how to use its sword. But here are the Forge Guard running up. Because those that front unit of Incendiary moved so far up last turn in order to deviate into the Black 13th, I'm able to get 4 charges off on them. 1 of them misses, and 3 of them hit, and allowing me to take out 3 out of 4 of that unit of Incendiarii there. So that is very good. And then the Black 13th taking some shots into an Arcuari and doing a little bit of damage to it. Everything else running around. And that is my turn. So that my feat turns up, so unfortunately my opponent's not going to be able to do a lot of damage. However, I've made a mistake this turn in that I didn't cast Deceleration with Haley, which means that my models are mostly defense 12, which means that those Arcuari and Incendiari are going to have a very easy time hitting models like my Stormblades. The Forge Guard, as I said before, armor 21, they don't really care. I think one of them gets killed by an Arcuari CRA, but the rest of them are just fine. However, the Stormblades, on the other hand, without any defensive benefit from Rupert and no deceleration at all, those Arcuari are going to need only 6s to hit them and 6s to kill them, which is not really where you want to be. So here I am losing 2 or 3 Stormblades to the Arcuari, the Incendiarii going, taking some more shots out. I think they end up taking out all of my Storm Gunners, which is very silly. I'm sorry, this is the Satrati going. 1 of them remained in... I'm sorry, 2 of them remained in melee with the Stormclad and did a 2-man CMA, doing 2 or 3 points of damage to it. Not an enormous amount, but more than I was expecting to take. I was hoping I would kill those 2, but the dice said no. So here is the Stormblades getting shot at more. Unfortunately, losing most of that unit of Stormblades to ranged attacks on my feat turn. Obviously a mistake on my part. My opponent throwing some AoEs into Ragman. The first one misses and sets my bonded Stormclad on fire. Fortunately, at armor 19, those Stormclads aren't going to take a ton of damage from fire. But then a unit on the other side of Incendiary going, hitting Ragman, and I elect to sack pawn over to Gorman. Now, because Gorman's immune to fire, the attack isn't going to damage either of them. The AoE stays in place, but Ragman is no longer hit by the attack, so he's not even set on fire by it. So, as long as my opponent is in range of Ragman and elects him as the target and hits him directly, then he's going to be able to pass that damage over to Gorman, and the attack is going to be pretty meaningless. But if you deviate onto Ragman with an AoE that missed him or that targeted somebody else, I'm not going to be able to sack it over. So my opponent starts doing that, although unfortunately all of the AoEs end up deviating over and into empty space. I think some more Forge Guard got set on fire, but that is all. So we are back over to my turn. A lot of fire being rolled. Unfortunately for my opponent, not a lot of it doing much damage. The Martial Stormclad's fire goes out, and I lose one Forge Guard to fire. Like I said, being armor 21, fire needs 10s. So fortunately, the Forge Guard pretty fire resistant this game. And most of the Stormblades that got hit usually die, so they're not a lot of need for fire checks on dead guys at this point. So after my feat turn, my Stormclads are relatively undamaged, and they're going to get another round of attacking my opponent's models. And that is the idea behind most of this list, because the Stormclads can do a lot of damage, especially when buffed by Haley spells. Getting 2 rounds of attacking allows them both to kill a lot of models individually. So hopefully I can take out Tiberian and the rest of the Satrani this turn. Unfortunately, I don't think that's enough to stop my opponent from killing the Stormclads. I needed those Stormblades to survive in order to get a big charge off onto the Arcuari on the side closer to the camera. Unfortunately, without casting Deceleration, that's just not possible, and it looks like I'm probably going to lose the Stormclad on that side to those Arcuari over there, unless I can kill a lot of them. However, the Forge Guard doing a lot of work, getting another charge off. They are able to kill, it looks like, most of an Incendiary unit, as well as a lot of Arcuari on that far flank over there. That's usually how this matchup goes in my experience. I a lot of times play it with Forge Guard and Stormblades, and the Forge Guard just sit there with Arcane Shield, don't take a lot of damage from the range attacks going in, and then hit hard twice and are able to clean most of a flank up of Cataphracts. Unfortunately, the Stormblade's not doing as much work this particular game, but that is me being silly, getting greedy, casting too many spells, and not casting Deceleration. So like I said before, 3 focus into my Bonded Stormclad, Arlen Strangeways, putting another focus with Power Booster onto the Martial Stormclad, and then those Stormblades charging into the Arcuari over there, trying to take them out and protect their Stormclad as much as possible. Looks like I leave one alive. Well, this is the assault shots. I end up killing one Incendiary and one Arcuari with that unit. So far, that unit's only killed about 4 Cataphracts worth of models, which is not nearly as much for the investment that you put into that unit of Stormblades, but without protecting them and forcing them to get Pathfinder to go over that wall, unfortunately, that's what's going to happen with them. So here comes, looks like Ragman, and he's getting right up in the middle, casting Death Field. Now the idea here is that the Bonded Stormclad is going to be able to move over in front of Ragman and hit Tiberion. That bump is going to trigger, which Tiberion cast last turn, and that's going to push the Stormclad back into Ragman, so I'm not going to be pushed the full 3 inches away, and I'm still going to be in a melee after that push. So here's the Marshaled Stormclad. He's able to take out 2 Cataphracts this turn instead of just 1. I think that's because of a nice blind bomb from Gorman. And then there's the Bonded Stormclad going in, taking a couple of attacks, hitting Tiberion, getting pushed back into Ragman, and then making a bunch more attacks into Tiberion. Possibly killing him. Yes, Tiberion is down. So that is Xerxis1 Warbeast. That means he's going to be forced to cut for Fury next turn in order to go back up to 5, and he's not going to be able to transfer anywhere. Unfortunately, Xerxis, with most of the Satrati dead, can Defender's Ward himself and just tank most of the game, really. So that he's not really worried about not having a lot of Warbeasts left. And with 2 juicy Stormclads in his face, his army's been pretty heavily mangled, especially by those Forge Guard. But because he's Xerxis, he makes everything hit ridiculously hard. So he's going to move in there with his Defender's Ward on himself. Feet, take a combo smite into that marshaled Stormclad there. He is going to push it a ways away into the other Stormclad, knocking both of them down. Dealing a massive 5d6 of damage, an additional die from his feet, and a second additional die from hitting another model of the same base size or larger, and doing most of the damage grade of that Stormclad. He also comes in at power 20 with that smite, so he's going to do a massive amount of damage, and almost kills it in one shot. So that is unfortunate, and but that is one of Xerxis' biggest strengths, is that he himself can buff himself and the damage output of his army to the point that he can really clean up after he's taken a ton of casualties. And with this Theme Force allowing him to get a lot of units of Cataphracts at a points cost reduction, he can really get in there with a ton of them, and it's very hard to kill enough of them before they can come back and do a lot of damage. So here it looks like the last Satrati going out, taking out the marshaled Stormclad, and only had a couple boxes left after that massive hit from Xerxis. So that is going to leave his Arcuari and Incendiary on that side, on the close side there, to take out the other Stormclad. So unfortunately, after my free turn, I wasn't able to kill enough, and Xerxis is still going to be able to get both Stormclads with his remaining models. So those Incendiary, not normally very powerful, only power 11 in melee. They still are Mat 7, but Xerxis' feet giving everybody an additional die of damage. They hit just about as hard as Bane Thralls, rolling 4 dice of damage at power 11. The Arcuari going, 1 Arcuari getting into that Stormclad, killing him as well. They are power 12 Weapon Masters normally, so they're rolling 5 dice of damage as well. The rest of them killing the rest of the Stormblade unit, except for the Officer, it looks like, and I think the Standard Bearer is back there somewhere. The other unit of Incendiary, I believe, took some gunshots, but weren't really able to do a lot of damage. The Forge Guard over on that side of the table are still there, and they are still going to be a big factor in this game. I think they're going to be able to get some charges off and try to clean up some of these Cataphracts. Because Xerxis' feet is up, though, they still do get an additional +2 armor. Ragman's chucking another blind bomb at, I think, the objective there, catching the Xerxis himself and the Satrati that's sitting there. That is going to be able to... So Xerxis isn't going to really be able to do a lot of damage next turn. And with Overtake and Reach, he can kill a lot of infantry himself. So that's what I want to stop him from doing. The Black 13th moving up, killing a couple more Cataphracts. Arlen Strangeway is getting in there with his Giant Wrench. He is only Mat 5, but he's a power 12 if he hits, so he can take out a Cataphract himself if he does hit. He ended up missing, though. The Black 13th taking an Arcuari there out. Haley camping Arcane Shield and a ton of focus, and running over to the flag. So the plan here, obviously I'm losing on attrition. Most of my Stormblades are dead, both of the Stormclads are dead, and the Forge Guard, without Arcane Shield, are going to take a lot of damage to fire. Here they are charging in. There's one Satrati there that they need to deal with, and they get a couple charges in on some Incendiary. 1 or 2 of them standing back there in order to get another charge next turn, because most of them are probably going to die to the counter attack. But Haley herself with Arcane Shield, camping a bunch of focus, can be very high armor and very difficult to kill. And that's one of the strengths of Warcasters over Warlocks, is that, especially a caster like Xerxis, running only 1 War Beast, can lose a lot of his offensive power late in the game, because he has to cut for Fury. He doesn't really want to do that every turn, and ends up not having as much Fury to play with, whereas Haley starts to sit on that Fury, throw some offensive spells around, and gunshots, and she can actually get a lot of damage out by herself. So we have Xerxis going again, taking some attacks, and just trying to clear those models out. So anyway, the plan here is for Haley to get over that zone, use her control magic and offensive output to clear the flag a couple of turns. If I can clear the flag and get a couple Forge Guard onto that objective, hopefully I can do that enough, as well as jam my opponent up with those Forge Guard who do have reach, so it's very difficult for them to for the cataphracts to get around them without killing them. And Xerxis is running out of attacks at this point. So hopefully I can do that enough that I can score 5 points on scenario over the course of a couple rounds and really get in there, hopefully win the game on scenario. One Incendiary moving around, taking a shot at the Forge Guard, who now without Defender's Ward, he's able to kill one with the initial shot, set another one on fire, and I lose, I think, 3 Forge Guard to fire this turn. So that is a huge swing right there. There were 5 Forge Guard alive at the beginning of the turn. Now there are only 2, so that is 3 cataphracts that are going to be able to survive this turn. The Black 13th moving in. Hopefully I can kill enough cataphracts in here to make the difference. There is Rupert Carvolo charging in, calling Heroic Call on the remaining Forge Guard there. He is a power 9, and I think he hits and does a little bit of damage. Here's Haley taking a hand cannon shot into the Tyrant Commander. He's a Mat 8 model with a power 12 Weapon Master stick, so he is a bit of a threat. Boosting the hand cannon shot, missing, and then taking 2 arcane bolts, boosting damage in both of them, and ends up killing that guy. Xerxis has no offensive spells, so Haley can go down to a pretty low camp and be pretty safe, especially hiding behind a couple models so that the Arcuari CRAs aren't really going to do a lot of damage, although there aren't enough Arcuari left on the table, I think, to make a big difference. So, fortunately, I'm able to make a bit of headway this turn. I score 1 point on scenario. 1 Incendiary moving up, taking a shot at Haley, setting Lynch on fire, I think. Unfortunately, not WotS. Now, WotS on fire, I don't know nobody really cares about because Lynch is the officer. Him dying means WotS needs to field promote, which means neither of the models in that unit are going to be able to shoot if Lynch dies. So here's Xerxis going, taking a bunch of attacks at the models in the zone. He's casting Fury onto the Arcuarii that are there. The plan here for him, Fury and giving them overtake as well, or overcome, I'm sorry, in order to allow them to move through those wreck markers that are in the center of the table. So the plan here is to kill the objective, dominate the zone, and score 3 points. Now, only 1 Arcuari was able to get into range of the objective. Normally that wouldn't kill it, but my opponent rolled very well, and he did have Fury, so they were power 15 Weapon Masters. Average dice, I think, does like 11-ish damage to the objective, but he ends up killing it in 1 shot, scoring him 3 points, which was unexpected. And that means that I'm going to have to try to kill Xerxis, because what's going to happen here? Xerxis is at 3. All he needs to do is clear the zone 1 more time, and with the number of cataphracts he has left, and I've lost so many models, that that is a distinct possibility for him. So what I end up doing is casting Temporal Acceleration onto Haley to give her herself another attack. She charges into Xerxis. He is Defender's Warded, but he can't transfer. So I end up missing a couple of attacks, unfortunately, leaving him alive and charging in with 1 Forge Guard, who tries to roll the 8 to hit and finish Xerxis off, but doesn't get there. So now Haley's standing in melee with Xerxis, and my opponent makes a bit of a miscalculation here. Now, Haley normally, she's sitting on Arcane Shield, so she's armor 17, but she's only defense 16, and Xerxis is Mat 8, so he's not really worried about that. But my opponent, unfortunately here, puts all of his resources into trying to kill Haley, which is not the right play. Now, what he needs to do is kill all the models in the zone, which consist of, I think, 1 Forge Guard and 1 Black 13th member. So he has to kill 2 models because Haley is a Warcaster and doesn't contest, and if he does that, then he ends up winning the game on scenario. But he puts a couple of attacks from the Arcuari, as well as Xerxis, boosting a couple of attacks, and unfortunately leaves Haley alive on like 2 boxes. Now, Haley's able to come back and stab Xerxis and impale him on her spear, giving Cygnar the victory. But if my opponent had thought about it a little bit more, an aiming CRA from those Arcuari could have put the Lynch or WotS down, would have killed him, and Xerxis with 5 Fury has absolutely no problem killing a Forge Guard, and that would have won my opponent the game. So if my opponent had thought about it a little bit more, I think he could have won this game very easily. So it was a victory for Cygnar. Go Swans, although I think a moral victory for my opponent because he played very well, and I wasn't able to get there through the might of the Fist of Halak. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed this battle report. It was a very interesting game, and as I said before, a very common matchup in tournaments, especially for Skorne players. They tend to see MkII a lot, I'm pretty sure, across the table from them. And she is a bit of a bugbear for them because she has such hard control, and they really hate the type of control that she brings. But the Xerxis definitely has the staying power and the hitting power to fight his way back into that game, and as you can see here, he definitely did that very well. So I've changed my list a little bit since then. I've taken one Stormclad out in exchange for some models, Haley2 as well as Anastasia, Bray, and Iris. Obviously, all those models help a lot in this particular matchup, and a lot of matchups. They are very strong models. Haley in particular adding a ton of bodies to the table. I still have to play with it and see how it goes, but I'm sure you guys will be seeing battle reports with the updated version of this list in the future, so stay tuned for that. Hope you guys enjoyed this battle report. Remember to stay tuned for more battle reports. I'm back in the groove of making battle reports. I lost a bit of time to being sick as well as being at TempleCon. Shout out to everybody I saw there, but I'm back in the swing of things and playing, recording regular games. I'll hopefully get some battle reports up to you guys very soon, so stay tuned for that, and keep it classy, folks.